We got three more sections to go. We're on estimating bad debts for allowance method. Part 3, estimate uncollectibles based on sales and accounts receivable. Bad debts expense is estimated under the allowance method. This section covers methods for estimating bad debts expense. Percent of sales method. The percent of sales method or income statement method assumes that a percent of credit sales for the period is uncollectible. For example, Musicland has credit sales of $400,000 in 2027. Musicland estimates 0.6% of credit sales to be uncollectible. This means Musicland expects $2,400 of bad debts expense from its sales. The formula shown is $400,000 times 0.006 and makes the following adjusting entry. On December 31st, bad debts expense is debited for $2,400. Allowance for doubtful accounts is credited for $2,400. This is to record the estimated bad debts. Allowance for doubtful accounts. A balance sheet account is not closed at period end. Unless a company is in its first period of operations, its allowance for doubtful accounts balance rarely equals the bad debts expense balance. When computing bad debts expense under the allowance method, managers monitor and adjust the percent so it's not too high or too low. There's a side note here. It says when using the percent of sales method for estimating uncollectibles, the adjusting entry amount always equals the percent of sales. Percent of receivables method. The percent of accounts receivable method, a balance sheet method, assumes that a percent of a company's receivables is uncollectible. This percent is based on experience and economic trends. Total receivables is multiplied by this percent to get the estimated uncollectible amount as reported in the balance sheet as allowance for doubtful accounts. Assume Musicland has $50,000 of accounts receivable on December 31st, 2027. It estimates 5% of its receivables is uncollectible. This means that after the adjusting entry is reported, or after the adjusting entry is posted, we want the allowance for doubtful accounts to show a $2,500 credit balance, 5% of $50,000. Exhibit 9.7 shows the T count for the allowance of doubtful accounts, along with computations for making the adjustment. Exhibit 9.7, allowance for doubtful accounts after bad debts adjusting entry. We have the allowance for doubtful accounts, current year write-offs, prior year estimate of allowance for doubtful accounts, adjusting entries, and current year estimate of allowance for doubtful accounts. The account has a $200 credit balance before the December 31st, 2027 adjustment. The adjusting entry to give the allowance account the estimated $2,500 balance is on December 31st, a bad debts expense. The bad debts expense is debited for $2,300, while allowance for doubtful accounts is credited for $2,300. This is to record the estimated bad debts. The adjusting entry applies our three-step adjusting entry process. Step 1, current balance for allowance account is $200 credit. Step 2, current balance for allowance account should be $2,500 credit. And step 3, record entry to get from step 1 to step 2. The aging of receivables method. The aging of accounts receivable method, another balance sheet method, is applied like the percent of receivables method, except that several percentages are used versus one to estimate the allowance. Each receivable is classified by how long it is past its due date. Then estimates of uncollectible accounts are made, assuming that the longer an amount is past due, the more likely it is uncollectible. After the amounts are classified or aged, experience is used to estimate the percent of each uncollectible class. These percents are multiplied by the amounts in each class to get the estimated balance of the allowance for doubtful accounts. An example schedule is shown in Exhibit 9.8. Exhibit 9.8 depicts the aging of accounts receivable. For Musicland, we have a schedule of accounts receivable by age starting on December 31st, 2027. There's one date, little snapshot. Is it a balance sheet? Yeah. Okay. So you have customers, totals, not yet due. Okay, and then split off of 1 to 30 days, 31 to 60 days, 61 to 90 days, over 90 days, organized by date. And then we have different customers. Okay. So each receivable is grouped by how long it is past the due date. Each age group is multiplied by its estimated bad debts percent. Estimated bad debts for each group are totaled. Okay, so the aging classifications here, those are summed up at the bottom and then added up here to get the sum total of estimated uncollectibles. Exhibit 9.8 lists each customer's balance assigned to one of 5 classes based on its days past due. The amounts in each class are totaled and multiplied by the estimated percent of uncollectible accounts for each class. To explain, Musicland has $3,700 in accounts receivable that are 31 to 60 days past due. Management estimates that 10% of the amounts in this class are uncollectible, or a total of $370, which is $3,700 times 10%, or 0.10. Similar analysis is done for each class. The final total of $2,270, which is a 743. These are all the numbers that are in the classifications on the graph or on the table in the image that you guys can't see. 2000 total of $2,270 shown in the first column is the estimated balance for the allowance of doubtful accounts. Unadjusted credit balance in the allowance account. Exhibit 9.9 shows that because the allowance account has an unadjusted credit balance of $200, the required adjustment to the what? The required adjustment to the it just cuts off. Okay. Exhibit 9.9, adjustment for the accounts receivable method. Step 1, current account balance equals. You got an unadjusted balance of $200 credit. Step 2, determine what account balance should be. Estimated balance of $2,270 credit. Step 3, make adjustment to get from step 1 to step 2. Required adjustment, $2,070 credit. Allowance for doubtful accounts is $2,070. We can use a T account for this analysis as shown to the side. This analysis yields the following end of period adjusting entry. On December 31st, bad debts expense is debited for $2,070, while allowance for doubtful accounts is credited for $2,070. This is to record the estimated bad debts. One point to make is that a debit unadjusted balance implies that write-offs for that period exceeded the total allowance. All right. Ooh, yeah, that's not good then. So you don't want the write-offs to exceed the allowance. All right, unadjusted debit balance in the allowance account. If the allowance account has an unadjusted debit balance of $500 instead of the $200 credit balance, its required adjustment would be computed as follows. Step 1, current account balance equals unadjusted balance, $500 debit. Step 2, determine what account balance should be. Estimated balance, $2,270 credit. Step 3, make adjustment to get from step 1 to step 2. Required adjustment, $2,770 credit. The entry to record the end of period adjustment is, for example, December 31st, we have a bad debts expense of $2,770 and an allowance for doubtful account credited for $2,770. This is to record the estimated bad debts. Estimating bad debts, summary of methods. Exhibit 9.10 summarizes the 3 estimation methods. The aging of accounts receivable method focuses on specific accounts and is usually the most reliable of the estimation methods. Exhibit 9.10, methods to estimate bad debts under the allowance method. Bad debts estimation. We have income statement focus, emphasis on matching. Leading to percent of sales. Sales times rate equals bad debt expense. Oh my god, I need more energy. Oh, I think my lunch is catching up to me. Bad debts estimation. We have a different route here where we can look at the balance sheet focus, emphasis on realizable value, And we have another split in the tree here where we can do percent of receivables or aging of receivables. Percent of receivables, the formula is accounts receivable times rate equals allowance for doubtful accounts. Aging of receivables is accounts receivable by age times rates by age equals allowance for doubtful accounts. Decision maker. All right, we have a labor union. 1 week prior to labor contract negotiations, financial statements are released showing no income growth. Wah, wah, wah. A 10% growth was predicted. Your analysis finds that the company increased its allowance for uncollectibles from 1.5% to 4.5% of receivables. Without this change, income would show a 9% growth. Does this analysis impact negotiations? The answer is yes. This information is likely to impact negotiations. The obvious question is why the company greatly increased this allowance. The large increase means a substantial increase in bad debts expense and a decrease in earnings. This change, coming prior to labor negotiations, also raises concerns because it reduces labor's bargaining power. We want to ask management for documentation justifying this increase. Need to know. Estimating bad debts. At its December 31st year end, a company estimates uncollectible accounts using the allowance method. 1. It prepared the following aging of receivables analysis. A. Estimate the balance of the allowance for doubtful accounts using the aging of accounts receivable method. B. Prepare the adjusting entry to record bad debts expense using the estimate from Part A. Assume the unadjusted balance in the allowance for doubtful accounts is a $10 debit. So we have days past due totals. Okay, accounts receivable. We got 2,600 total. Days past due to 0, 2,000. 1 to 30 days, 300. 31 to 60 days, 80. 61 to 90 days, 100. And over 90 days, $120. The percent uncollectible for 0 days past due is 1%. 1 to 30, 2%. 31 to 65%. 61 to 97%. And over 90, 10%. Refer to the data in Part 1. A. Estimate the balance for the allowance for doubtful accounts by assuming the company uses 2% of total accounts receivable to estimate uncollectibles instead of the aging of receivables method in Part 1. B. Prepare the adjusting entry to record bad debts expense using the estimate from Part 2A. Assume the unadjusted balance in the allowance for doubtful accounts is a $4 credit. 3. Refer to the data in Part 1. A. Estimate the balance of the uncollectibles, assuming the company uses a 0.5% of annual credit sales. Annual credit sales were $10,000. B. Prepare the adjusting entry to record bad debts expense using the estimate from Part 3A. Assume the unadjusted balance in the allowance for doubtful accounts is a $4 credit. Solutions for 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B. Cool. 1A, computation of the estimated balance of the allowance for uncollectibles. Not due, So we got not due is $2,000 times 0.01, $20, 1 to 30 days, 300 times 0.02. That is $6, 31 to 60 days, 80 times 0.05, $4. 61 to 90 days, 100 times 0.07, $7, and over 90 days, 120 times 0.10, $12, which sums up to a $49 credit. On December 31st, bad debts expense can be debited for $59, while allowance for doubtful accounts is credited for $59 to record the estimated bad debts. Step 1, current account balance equals ... Step 2, determine what the account balance should be. Step 3, make adjustments to get from Step 1 to Step 2. So for the unadjusted balance, we have a $10 debit, and the estimated balance is a $49 credit. The required adjustment is a $59 credit. Allowance for doubtful accounts, the unadjusted December 31st is a $10 debit, adjusted December 31st is a $59 credit. And estimated balance for December 31st is $49. For 2A, computation of the estimated balance of the allowance for uncollectibles, we got $2,600 times 0.02, which equals a $52 credit. 2B, December 31st, we have a bad debts expense of $48. Bad debts expense is debited for $48, while allowance for doubtful accounts is credited for $48. This is to record the estimated bad debts. Step 1, current account balance equals, find out what that is. Step 2, determine what account balance should be. And step 3, make adjustments to get from step 1 to step 2. The unadjusted balance is a $4 credit, estimated balance is $52 credit, and the required adjustment is a $48 credit. So allowance for doubtful accounts, unadjusted December 31st is a $4 credit, adjusted December 31st, $48 credit, and estimated balance as of December 31st is a $52 credit. Computation of the estimated balance of the bad debts expense. Hopefully, hold on, like the part that I just read right there, hopefully I'm reading that right, but I'm just going based off of whatever columns they put it in. So if it's listed in the credit column, I'm going to call it a credit. If it's listed in the debit column, I'm going to call it a debit. So if I'm wrong, then hopefully they fix their format so it can be more legible. 3A, computation of the estimated balance of the bad debts expense. $10,000 times 0.005 equals $50 credit. And then for 3B, just on December 31st, the bad debts expense is debited for $50, while there's a $50 credit to allowance for doubtful accounts. And this is to record the estimated bad debts. Awesome. That was so much fun. Woohoo.